Live from a studio apartment, this is Misinformation. We got I forgot to take the damn internet down. Got Pam Bondi already up on the screen. It's a big news story for the day. Some big news today. Pam Bondi out, she's gone. Fired, Apprentice style. Apparently, that's like sort of the news. We'll get into it a little bit. The details, the finer points with that. We'll get into immigration. There's some Turkish baby harvesting ring going on. What is that? We'll check it out. What else? Iran, Trump blowing up some bridges over there, burning bridges in Iran. Theo Vaughn calling the U.S. terrorists. He says we're the terrorists. That happened today. There's fraud raids in California. All that stuff and more in just a sec. But first, some jokes. Thanks for waiting and hanging out. If you hung out, I had to move my car. I refuse to pay for parking now in downtown San Diego. Affordability, which we'll get into in a second as well. But let's get rid of this. Yeah, it's like $150 a month for parking. It's all crazy. And so I have a complex system where I'm parked in like a yellow curb and I have to move it at a certain time to avoid fines. Anyways. That's fine. Ooh, let's go here. Well, President Trump has fired Attorney General Pam Bondi. Yeah, apparently she was the last known victim of the Epstein files. You should have released him sooner, turns out. Those binders didn't go over well with folks. That's a very insider conservative joke. You need to be fatally online on Twitter to get that joke. Anyways. Well, the Supreme Court is debating whether to keep birthright citizenship for so-called anchor babies. Yeah. Trump actually sat in on the oral arguments. Yeah, his plan was to bang Ketanji Brown so that if she gets pregnant, the baby is automatically a Supreme Court justice. Yeah. That could be the deciding vote. A lot of important cases. If it's born in the court, it's automatically a justice. In any case. That was a weird joke. It was a busy day at work. On to the news. Let's pull up this guy. What up, everyone? How's it going? Chat. How's everyone's day? Okay. Big news story from today. So Pam Bondi is out. This is something that's been kind of rumored for a little while. I don't think she was she was a little bit divisive with like the super MAGA people, the super base. Mostly because of the handling of the Epstein files, I think. So, let me see if I have I think I just had the photo of it in the beginning, like the binders. If you guys aren't aware, there was the whole thing where when she first was made the Attorney General, so that's a big deal. That's basically the country's the government's main attorney. That's what the Attorney General does, right? They're there to like defend the government in any law cases. They're to argue before the Supreme Court in some instances. Argue cases to Congress and things like that. And then also to control, like, they're in charge of the FBI, the Department of Justice, everything. So they're the ones that decide who and when to bring charges against people. So, like, when you had Don Lemon invading that church not too long ago, Pam Bondi was the person who had to ultimately, like, make the call. I think there were also some state attorney generals who were involved. But, you know, she's the head honcho who makes the calls on, like, what you're going to prosecute on, right? So in any case, she's out. Big change. It's kind of funny watching Trump, by the way. Little side note. Just watching him like run the government like he did Celebrity Apprentice, you know? It's just funny that we had that like window into the future, you know, if you ever watched the show in the past. He essentially does the same thing. He's really good at like hiring and firing people and like figuring out who's doing a good job and not being afraid to like let go of a person swiftly if they're just not like doing it for them, if they're not meeting expectations. Now, he's come out already with a tweet and said, we love Pam Bondi. She did a great job. She's going to have a different position in the private sector, right? So he's saying there's no bad blood, which may be true. That's what it sort of seems like to me. I don't think there was any super bad blood between them or anything like that. But she obviously wasn't doing something that he wanted, right? So it's two main theories. People are saying it was either over the Epstein files, right, her handling of that, which a lot of, like I said, MAGA people didn't really like, or it was perhaps over her failure to prosecute for Trump's lawfare opponents. These were the Democrat people who prosecuted Trump when he was running for re-election in the lead up to that in 2024. I think these cases occurred mostly it was really over the course of the 4 years as I remember it. So if I had to pick one, I would guess it's more actually about the lawfare than the Epstein files thing. Trump himself has said that, he believes those are a Democrat hoax, or at least that's how he framed it previously. But just to go back to that, in any case, this is what the MAGA base is upset about. I think this is a graphic about it. So when she first was elected the Attorney General, she basically came out and was making these big claims that they were going to release the Epstein files, right? And they held this big press conference where I know Cernovich from Twitter was involved. They brought in a bunch of influencers for this big reveal of the Epstein files. I wish I had a picture of it. But they actually, if you Google Epstein files too, you don't find many results online. They kind of hide all the pictures and stuff, right? So even in this, what happened is they brought in all these influencers to release the Epstein files. And what it really turned out was they just had a bunch of binders that didn't really have anything in them. And it was more like a weird photo op, right? And then they didn't have any Epstein files to release for months and months afterwards. So people were really let down by it, especially conservatives who felt like they'd been promised they were going to get the Epstein files. They didn't really get anything, right? Matt Walsh mentioned that today. So he says, Bondi should have been fired the day after the Epstein binder fiasco, which was one of the dumbest, most gratuitous, and wholly unnecessary stunts I've ever seen in politics. Which I agree with. It was totally dumb. It was weird. I'm glad she's gone now. We need someone who will actually do things, not pretend to do things. Now, Cernovich did respond to that, which is interesting, because he was actually one of the influencers that was brought in and was forced to hold one of these binders. He weighs in on it. He says, it truly was not a stunt. I was there. The White House was rolling out the red carpet for new media. Okay, so they had some new media coming in. Briefings all day with cabinet, principals, etc. We had to leave the building at Keir Starmer's people needed the room. They were outside waiting. We ran overtime. It was not some chess play on us. Bondi told us there wasn't anything new in the binders, but wanted to show us they were working on it. It was a gesture of goodwill. Then we went outside and snap, snap, snap. Armies of photographers. A great example of the truth is stranger than fiction. Now, I appreciate him trying to, giving his perspective of what actually occurred. But it did seem to me like Matt Walsh is a little more correct here. It actually did look like a stunt. I mean, despite what Cerno's saying here that, they were rushed out and she told them there was nothing in the binders, but it was a gesture of goodwill. It was still framed to the public as, hey, we're going to drop the Epstein files tomorrow, right? Why would you do that if you literally didn't have them ready? Which is what Matt Walsh is pointing out. It's the dumbest and wholly unnecessary, as he points out, stunt that you could have done. If you didn't have anything, there's no need for a photo op. Don't worry about it. Just tell people you're not ready yet and release something when you actually have a full binder, right? For me, the actual release of the Epstein files still left a lot to be answered. I don't think we got any definitive answers, except there was that Prince Andrew, was it, that got ousted by his government for some stuff in there. But we didn't see a list. We didn't learn too much new stuff. So it still ended up being a little bit underwhelming to me, but at least we did get more releases and more files at some point. But so people are saying that's one of the main reasons. To me, I don't know that that's why Trump would have let her go. To me, it has more to do with her failure to prosecute for the lawfare that occurred against him. I know it's a boring visual, but This is Grok with all the lawfare things that happened to Trump, right? This was in the lead up to the 2024 election. There was the New York hush money trial, 34 counts of falsifying. Let me pull it up here. Trump avoids prison or fine in hush money case sentencing. So this was 34 felony counts the Democrats brought against him for falsifying business records tied to some Stormy Daniels payment. I don't even remember the details of this. It was so stupid, but he was like paying her for something. They were saying it was hush money. Really should have never gone to trial. He was actually sentenced on this. He was sentenced on a lot of these, I think. Appeals are still ongoing. This was the case right here. It's kind of, there's so many of them happen, you almost don't remember some of them by now. The federal classified documents case. So this was another 40 felony counts when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, raided his home with guns drawn and everything, right? My understanding is they took a bunch of pictures of files that he had, which it turns out in retrospect he had every right to have. I think they were briefings or something. The trial was eventually dismissed, but at the time I think the agents put a little piece of paper that said classified on top of the boxes and took a photo of it. Literally framed him, right? Could have killed him. I mean, they were raiding his home in the early morning hours of former president, a recent former president, right? Imagine if we did that to Barack Obama, right? Imagine if we went and raided his home over something. Like, Democrats would be up in arms, you know? This happened. No trial. Case ended. Dismissed. Election interference for January 6th. Paused after the Supreme Court immunity ruling. Georgia election interference. This was where he was accused of finding the votes. I believe that's what it was about. Dropped or dismissed in 2025. No trial. But they were trying to try him for that. And of course, the bigger ones, the civil fraud case in New York, Attorney General Letitia James. This was where he supposedly inflated the values of his assets, which was really a pretty standard bank proceeding. I'll never pay for you, New York Times. And they levied a $454 million judgment against him for some pretty basic business practices, right? Still in appeals. And then the Jean Carroll case, where he's liable for sexual abuse and defamation. $80 million for some lady from like 30 years ago who just now decided it was time, as spurred on by the Democrats behind her, to come out and levy these charges against Trump, right? So you had all of these and more, what are called lawfare cases against him, which was Democrats basically trying, which the lawfare never ended, by the way. They're still doing it with liberal judges who are stopping basically every executive order that Trump comes up with now to try and throw a wrench in what he's doing. Yeah, just the other day, he repealed or tried to appeal all of the immigrants that came in through Biden had this border app that allowed immigrants to easily get into the country, illegal immigrants. Trump tried to rescind it because it should have never been allowed in the first place. You can't just change immigration law with an app, right? Well, apparently you can. A liberal judge came out and said, no, you can't reverse it. Now that they're in here, you got to go through all this process to get them out of the country. So still there is lawfare that we're seeing against Trump, right? And he's mentioned this a couple of times with Pam Bondi, where he was saying basically he wanted to, I think he vocalized it maybe on Truth before, where he was saying he wanted her to come out and be more aggressive prosecuting these people who had filed lawfare lawsuits against him, basically. So you have Margaret here, Olahan. President Trump made the decision in part because he was frustrated with the lack of criminal prosecutions of Democrats who committed lawfare against him, federal sources tell Real Daily Wire. She has a little bit more here. Federal sources tell me that the president made the decision in part because he was frustrated with the lack of criminal prosecutions. I'm also told that on Tuesday, the president met with Lee Zeldin, who's rumored to be under consideration to lead the Justice Department. He's already replaced, I believe the guy's name is Todd Blanche, who is in as the new Attorney General. So he's got an acting one in there. Some people are also saying that Tulsi might be next. This is all rumors, of course, right? You have Laura Loomer here, who says, I told you. she's sort of a conspiracy theorist type person online, but she is right occasionally. And there were a lot of people talking about Pam Bondi was kind of on the outs and getting ready to be fired before this happened. So never know. Tulsi could be next. I know, I want to say it was it the Epstein files thing? There was some recent prominent case where Tulsi came out to defend Trump and didn't really defend him, I thought. I forget which case it was. But Laura says here, Tulsi Gabbard will leave, and then there's going to be a shakeup at the DOJ. Sources tell me ODNI, I don't even know what that is first, then AG. Tulsi had a meeting with the president. As I previously reported, she was condemned for not defending him during her Senate hearing, and it was determined that she needs to leave. She will be leaving soon. I don't know what Senate hearing she's referring to here. Let's ask Grok. What Senate hearing is she referring to? I feel like there was something else where Tulsi didn't fully come out and defend Trump. She sort of like wishy-washy defended him, but didn't really. Let's see what it is. My $20 AI agent's got to think about it for a second. Select Committee on Intelligence, Worldwide Threats. This is recent. Tulsi testified along CIA Director John Ratcliffe. The hearing focused heavily on the ongoing U.S.-Israeli military strikes against Iran, with senators pressing Gabbard on intelligence community assessments. This is, I think, what I remember, is basically in defending Trump's decision to invade Iran, she didn't come out with a full-throated endorsement of the Iranian invasion. She came out kind of just saying that like he did what he had to do, and the intelligence that he had supported the decision that he made, but fell short of actually coming out and saying like, yeah, we had to do this, I support it. I think she famously does not support foreign interventionism. So this might be a conflict point between those two. You know, you've got him going in here. She's pretty outspoken about not wanting to get involved in foreign wars, right? Which she considers, I think, Iran to be that kind of foreign intervention war that she would prefer to stay out of. So there does seem to be a little bit of friction, and Trump is quick to fire people that are not 100% behind him. So we might see some more shakeups pretty soon. So we got that. We'll get into my other big clickbait headline: Turkish baby harvesting ring. How's that for some clickbait? It's actually not, though. This was Cernovich again. By the way, I love Cernovich's account. If you guys are unfamiliar, I don't know how on X people are. On Twitter, he's a great account. But anyways, so this is 2020. There is a Turkish anchor baby ring found operating in Long Island, New York. Mothers got taxpayer-funded health care. This is insane. Prosecutors say more than 100 pregnant women from Turkey came here just to give birth. So this is about birthright citizenship, right, which the Supreme Court was just discussing. 100 pregnant women from Turkey came here to give birth, so their children were instantly granted U.S. citizenship. Investigators say the women then used benefits like Medicaid, right, which is why there is this birth tourism, it's called, right? You have people from other countries, mothers from other countries who are 8 months pregnant, paying a tourism country to come to the U.S. just so they can deliver the kid here, so that all of a sudden they hit the big lottery, right? Jackpot. They get access to all this food stamps, benefits, free childcare, and greater chances of eventually becoming an American citizen, right? Because now they got a kid here. See what the
advertised in
report
Turkey.
says. Oh, I need my headphones.
An alleged anchor baby ring on.
Sweet. Thanks for waiting. If I don't have my little headphone, I can't hear anything that's happening. Let me adjust it. This should work.
Long Island. Prosecutors say more than 100 pregnant women from Turkey came here to give birth, so their children were instantly granted U.S. citizenship.
Investigators say the women then used benefits like Medicaid. CBS 2's Carolyn Gussoff reports from Suffolk County.
An alert Smithtown town employee noticed a strange pattern of birth certificates, 5 babies from one house at one time. An investigation led to an international fraud scheme, an alleged birth tourism ring.
They're always, whether it's hospices or babies, right, or Somali daycares, it's always like 80 of them in the same house, right, or in the same business center.
Operating on Long Island for 3 years.
The defendants fraudulently facilitated the births in the United States of approximately 119 Turkish children. And those children now hold birthright U.S. citizenship.
It's the 14th Amendment that grants citizenship to any child born in the U.S. Officials say in this case, ringleaders brazenly advertised in Turkey. Translation, if you believe your baby should be born in the USA and become an American citizen, you're in the right place. What's
good little company to have here in Turkey.
illegal, alleged lies to obtain travel visas, fraudulent Medicaid claims for babies and moms who stayed at 7 birth houses across Suffolk County. Women paid up to $10,000 each for accommodations and free health care paid by U.S. taxpayers.
I mean, that's absolute bullshit. They barely even made it into America. I mean, they come on the barely make it to America. They cross that goal line, and all of a sudden, I mean, that's the problem with the way that the 14th Amendment is being interpreted currently. Is it was meant to not free slaves, but it was meant to give all freed slaves citizenship to counter some of the lasting effects of the Dred Scott case and slavery, and instead it's being used by these tourism countries. You know, people from other countries. If you wonder why so many people want to be American citizens, why they pass through Mexico to get here, even though they're desperately seeking asylum, but they don't stop in Mexico, they keep on going. It's because they don't view America as the land of the free, right? They view America as the land of the free shit. You get here, you basically hit the lottery, you hit the jackpot. The social programs that we have in place, basically to somebody from Turkey who's not doing too well in Turkey already, the social programs could pay for their entire life and their entire family's life, probably. Right? As long as they can just cross that border. So it's just the wrong way to do things.
And free health care paid by U.S. taxpayers.
They're doing it on the backs of the taxpayers. They're milking the Medicaid system.
6 people arrested, charged with money laundering and $2 million in Medicaid fraud. Birth tourism has gotten the president's attention, who recently closed some loopholes.
It is estimated that over 30,000 childbirths occurred in the United States last year alone in connection with this practice.
Prosecutors say...
Yeah, we spend more on, I think it was like Medicaid and social programs than we do on the military budget. That's like a stat that blew me away the other day, right? And there was, I think it was Cernovich maybe too, was also pointing out the other day, with the amount of money that Democrats spend giving benefits to illegal immigrants, they could literally afford to just fund the lives of every American citizen. You could take that money, which is bigger than our defense, our military budget, and you could give it to American citizens who are already here. And they could get those benefits and live a pretty reasonable life with like a universal basic income. But instead you want to outsource it to other people so that they give you votes, right? So you replace the voting populace and you have a permanent voting populace, a block that you brought in through a quid pro quo. So anyways, you have these tourism countries. It does look, just to touch back, I covered this a little bit last night, the birthright citizenship argument in the Supreme Court. It does not look likely that Trump's executive order, which was essentially repealing birthright citizenship, is going to stand. It looks like just Trump even went to the Supreme Court to hear the oral arguments. Citizens, gosh. Ship. He went to the Supreme Court to hear the oral arguments. I think he left midway through because it was clear that the justices, including, I think, John Roberts, were calling some of the government's arguments quirky. The problem, and I kind of agree with it, is the way that 14th Amendment is written, where it basically says that just literally anyone born within the United States, of course it's meant for freed slaves, and at the time when you didn't have illegal immigrants being flown in by Turkish Goombas flying them in with travel agencies, it worked really well for freed slaves, right? Anyone born in the United States, Native Americans too, right? You were just an American citizen, clears things up, right? That's pretty good. Now, that one sentence, it's in the Constitution now, really hard to change, and it's hard for even these justices to come out and change it. So it's almost like, I mean, people were making fun of Ketanji Brown Jackson the other day for saying, like, you know, if they might have the quote here. She's talking about, like, if you go to another country and you stole someone's wallet, you would then theoretically be subject to their laws, their jurisdiction. That's because of the verbiage in the 14th Amendment. What they're debating is it's basically saying, if you're born here, you're subject to the jurisdiction, i.e. the laws, you owe allegiance to the country, so you're a citizen. It's tough to change without a congressional change. So I think the reason Trump walked out is because he realizes in order to change that thing, in order to do away with birthright citizenship, you really do need an act passed by Congress. You need another amendment, pretty much. And I think Tim Pool was saying this the other day, that there's built-in verbiage in the 14th Amendment which states that Congress shall not abridge it or make changes to it. So I don't know exactly how you change that, but tough to see the Supreme Court overturning it. I don't. So you have that going on. Here's some more immigration news. This is a fun one. Breaking 3 illegal immigrants and MS-13 gang members. Sweet. Thank you, Biden. Charged in connection with 11 brutal murders. The trio went out hunting for victims to boost their status in the gang. They did it for street cred. One victim stabbed over 200 times, leaving the body unrecognizable.
Notorious street gang MS-13. There's a high-profile federal trial going on right now here in Las Vegas. 3 MS-13 members are on trial here, accused of 11 killings in Nevada and California. Prosecutors say these gang members went out hunting for people to kill. This is a sketch from the review journal of those 3 members. At least some of them. We're showing them one by one here. We're told that one of the victims died after allegedly being stabbed, get this, more than 200 times.
Cowards, first of all. I mean, again, if you're going to be in a gang, you want to shoot at the gang members, okay. But just like randomly hunting pretty much defenseless people, cowardice. You know, I used to make fun, I had some jokes about when there were all those ICE protests popping off in Minnesota and everything. ICE, stay out of our city. And they're like comparing them to the Gestapo. You know, it's just like, nothing makes me laugh more than picturing like a Democrat woman harboring who she believes is Anne Frank in her attic, and it turns out it's just an MS-13 gang member. It's just the diary tattooed across their face, I imagine. So yeah, I mean, and I've said this before too, each and every day, Trump's initial claim, which seemed absurd to a lot of people at the time, that they weren't letting in their best, they were letting in their rapists and their murderers. It looks more and more true each and every day. I might get kicked off of TikTok tonight. That's a possibility. I got kicked off the other day for talking about schmoting rights. When you put papers with names on them in boxes to pick somebody. Any discussion of that they don't like, I noticed. Still, 6 years after the impeccable schmishmaction of 20-something. Okay, how's the chat doing, by the way? How's everyone? Good? Sweet. Oh, God. Disturbing messages. All right, we got birthright citizenship. Oh, well, this was a recap from the New York Post about why they'll likely lose the argument. Let's see if there's anything important here. They say he left the courtroom midway through the arguments in the closing case. Administration was going to lose. I want to see the part where it talks about the verbiage. This is the relevant provision that everyone's debating. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's why Kadanji's bringing up, well, what does the jurisdiction mean? Like, how easy is it for a country to have jurisdiction over somebody? Are citizens of the United States. It's unclear what jurisdiction means. It's one of those things. It's going to be tough to see the judges collectively getting a majority opinion to overturn this thing. I mean, you ask me, yeah, but that's the problem with these one-liners, is they're interpretable both ways. Other key justices expressed significant skepticism. Chief Justice Roberts called the Solicitor General, his claims, quirky, which is not a good sign. That's why people don't think it's going to pass. Anytime a Supreme Court judge is calling your arguments quirky, they don't like them. Gorsuch characterized it as Roman law. Yeah, so not going well. Amy Coney Barrett said that overturning it would create some messy applications. So yeah, doesn't look like it's going to pass. Anyways, what else we got here today? This was interesting. There was Iran update, kind of. We have Theo Von calling us the terrorists, calling U.S. terrorists. We had Trump tweeting today. We'll get to Theo Von in a second. But Trump was just pointing out, I guess this was, he says, the biggest bridge in Iran comes tumbling down, never to be used again. Much more to follow, never to be used again. Time for Iran to make a deal. So always pushing that leverage, right? Always creating the leverage, using those visuals that he has. None too shy about being the president that will show the visuals, because they are very persuasive, right? You wouldn't see somebody who is less persuasive like Barack Obama, or of course Biden, who could barely talk, doing something like this. So I actually like that Trump's doing it. At the same time, you had Theo Von visited Joe Rogan's podcast. This was real recently, and they were talking about Iran. So Joe, I guess, doesn't like it. He doesn't know why we're in Iran. Theo Von jumps in and says, we're the terrorists. We need to look in a mirror, listen in.
What do you think is going to happen? You think we're going to be okay?
I hope so. Of course. I don't know.
Do you think about it?
I'm confused. I can't believe we went to this war. When we started bombing Iran, I was like, this can't be true.
And what about Lebanon now?
I know. Israel's invaded Lebanon. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, just fucking stop. Like, what do you need?
Well, they're trying to, supposedly, they're trying to stop the terrorists.
Yeah, that's crazy, though, if you're the fucking terrorist. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to stop them, fucking stand in front of the fucking mirror and start there.
What an absolutely worthless opinion. What a useless person this guy is. I know he's a comedian and stuff, but this is a valid opinion that he has. This is what he's jumping in with, that the U.S. is the terrorist. Now, I don't mind people having reservations about whether we should have gone in to Iran at this moment in time or not, or whether the administration made a convincing enough case that now was the time and it was an urgent and fully necessary to completely overtake Iran, right? There are lots of people, lots of conservatives who have concerns about it, right? When it first started, I was like, are you sure we're doing the right thing here, Trumpy? All right. I did, and I said this at the time, I gave him credit because I was like, he's been really efficient with this stuff so far, so I'm going to extend him a line of credit and see what he can do with it. But there's a difference between having those reservations and being so distorted or so stupid that you actually would look and think that the U.S., that your own country that you're from is the terrorists, right? This is sort of the fundamental problem with Democrat thinking right now. I know Theo Von's not necessarily a Democrat, but it's that same type of thinking where it's almost a self-hatred, right? Here's the thing, and it might be controversial to say, I don't even care if something you're saying like that is true. The problem is it's a fatalistic belief. It's fatal to have the belief that your own team or your own country is a villain. you could almost make that argument with any country, with any type of aggression, any type of war, right? You could look at either side and say, well, these are killing, that's killing, someone's a villain, right? But to believe that your own country is a villain, that's the sort of bad strain of thinking that has perverted and poisoned the American left for years, and that led to wokeness, right? I remember when I was a kid in like elementary school, one of my teachers for like American history like paused the class at some point and was like, seriously, how long do you think America's gonna last as a country? Like, she outright asked that in the middle of the class to like, we were probably in 6th or 7th grade or something, right? And that was the first time I'd ever heard a teacher like mention this kind of disdain for America before, a history teacher, right? But apparently that sort of thinking was just beginning to take hold at the time, right? And it's the same fundamental problem I've always had with that thing. It's the same thing with, you know, the football players that take a knee because during the anthem because they don't want to stand for their country. It's like, it'd be like if you were a player on a team and you're trying to win together as a country, but you hate your team. You believe your team's evil. How could you work at a job if you believed your job was evil and was the one doing bad things? You probably wouldn't do very good at that job, right? So it's a fatalistic belief. And again, it adds nothing to the argument to point out that like that said, it's also incorrect. I mean, you could easily look at that and go, I mean, we know the difference between terrorists in the U.S. We're killing terrorists, right? The terrorists are the ones cutting off people's heads. They're the ones blowing themselves up to kill other people, right? Wishing death to America, death to Israel. So it's a little bit of a leap. And Theo Von just seems to me to be somebody who probably shouldn't comment on political things because he doesn't really have quite enough of a nuanced opinion on these types of topics. I appreciate our shared mullet. I mean, I do like that, but I wouldn't want him having any type of a policy say with what we do, you know what I mean? I'd be a little bit like, no thanks, Theo Von. So that was that, Theo Von dropping the terrorist claim. California, we got some fraud going on. I have one hopeful story, which I just saw again, but I'm like, let's get into more fraud stuff first. California fraud. This was, so apparently the FBI has been doing raids targeting healthcare fraud, raids across Southern California. I heard somebody refer to just the state of California as the fraud earlier today, and I thought that was perfect. It really just is a fraud. Oh, someone online said it was like one big leering center. Like the state of California itself just is a leering center, which I thought was funny.
Two owners of two hospices here in Greater Los Angeles, they're accused of collectively stealing about $16 million from taxpayers. And this money was intended, right, for compassionate end-of-life care for the terminally ill. Here's some video we shot earlier today of the FBI making those arrests of a husband and wife, he a doctor, she a nurse, co-owners of the St. Francis Palliative Care Hospice in Glendale. And what they were doing was this, admitting people who were not qualified for hospice, but billed the government as if they were, about $30,000 per patient. And when the benefits ran out, they dropped them. Here's the kicker. Nationally, 80% of adults admitted, or people admitted to hospice die, and usually in the first few weeks. Here, almost nobody died. After 8 months, 97% left alive.
Incredible hospice. Just reversed people's outcomes almost immediately. The more money they got, the more people survived. It's crazy. So it turns out it's not hard to find these places as long as you have something like AI to feed these stats into. All of a sudden they find these magical hospices where nobody actually dies. And you zero in. Now this looks very different from the daycare fraud that was happening in Minnesota. You know, this is not a group of immigrants who are moving and applying for benefits. This is actually my understanding is they're a so-called educated couple who has a psychology degree, one of them, the other's a nurse. So they're probably doing pretty well off already. And now all the more affluent after figuring, I guess they just figured out at some point that there was this scam you could partake in. Maybe they were one of the smart ones. I feel like I'm the only dumb one who never got in on any of these scams. I'm like, really? I could have had Travis's hospice right here set up the whole time. I'll find some dead people right now. I'll pack this place with dead people, dying people. I don't care. Never got in on it. But yeah, so they actually got him. It's cool too. The name of the operation from the FBI, it's Operation Never Say Die. Which, you know, they're using ChatGPT for that. You know, they're like, I need a pun on death and not dying. So Operation Never Say Die. They actually got these guys. They were arrested in I think this was a morning raid. Drug them out in handcuffs, so they're gone. What the hell is this? I don't need no PayPal. Anytime I make an excursion into the actual internet, it's like a horrible experience. Can I just say? X, so much better. This crap, there's going to be 8 more ads that pop up in the middle of the damn page. 8 people were taken into custody during Operation Never Say Die, including 3 nurses, a chiropractor, and a psychologist. All good jobs, those bastards. Which brings me to another point, actually, here. This was another lady talking today. I thought she had a really good point. It's a mother earning about $60K a year who says she can't afford her daughter's medical care, but would qualify for assistance if she earned a little bit less. And she claims the system punishes those trying to stay afloat. I believe she's right. Here, take a listen.
I feel like only in America can you need medical assistance that you can't afford to get. And in order to get government help, you have to make under a certain amount. So if you're someone who's like makes $60,000 a year, you don't qualify for any fucking help, but you can't actually afford to get your child the services that they fucking need. But if I quit my job and I go work for McDonald's, I can live off the government and then she can have the help that she needs. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
Yeah, I mean, she's 100% right. It is a system that incentivizes being lazy and doing nothing, and actually incentivizes fraud, right? Because the only way that a lot of these people qualify for benefits is by actually lying about their income and hiding their income. Believe me, I work in apartments, managing apartments, so I have to qualify people on their income a lot of the time. And I see people using these type of benefit programs a lot of the time. And like if you're ever if you work in like a low income housing area, for instance, where the government, there's like a deal where you get special tax credits for having certain percentage of low income housing. Basically, you have to check people's income when they come to qualify for your apartments. And there's a whole like several day interview process because people will, you'll ask to see their bank accounts. Oh, this is my only income. They'll show you a bank account. All of a sudden you see these mysterious Zelle payments going into the bank account. What are these? I need to see the Zelle statements. Oh, well, let me bring my Zelle statement. All of a sudden there's a bunch of PayPal statements going into the Zelle account that trace to another Apple Cash account. Like, they get a bunch of cash money. They just funnel everything through cash so that they can keep under that income threshold, whatever it is, right? Because if you get under that certain threshold, you get access to all these benefits. And I relate to this lady because I'm one of those people that just constantly lives slightly above that threshold. It's like there's like a lower class in America, which I would proudly consider myself a part of. But then there's like a slightly less lower class that's like on food stamps and benefits. It's actually above. There's like the lowest class you can be is the working class. And then there's just a benefits class that's slightly above that. That's like kind of living pretty a little bit. I see them every day. They get free rent. And when they run out of that money, another charity organization steps in to pay their rent again. They live like kings. I'm struggling paycheck to paycheck. They're like, which charity organization is going to pay my next rent check? Right? And it is weird that you have to be under that little income threshold to not only get temporary assistance, but to basically get forever benefits. Like there's no cutoff. You just stay on it forever. So that's a bummer. Anyways, hopefully one day enough people will subscribe to my YouTube and Rumble I'm also on, that I won't have to try to make less to earn those benefits. What else we got here? Let's go to our one happy story for the night. I got a new section now called The Good News, okay? Okay, guys? This was the good news from today. There's only one. That's high for the day. So this is a Baltimore mom is receiving massive praise after returning to the same food stand her son robbed just days before to reconcile with the owner, return the money, and apologize for her son's actions, confirming she placed him in a treatment facility. I don't know that he robbed it. I think he probably just stole a bunch of money from the tip jar. But I guess this guy who owns the food stand live streams, which maybe she knew. I don't know. But it is just a good story. You should hear the mom speak here.
A little while ago, a young man came to your stand and took
yeah.
tip jar. I'm his mother.
Oh,
How much did he take from you?
like something I couldn't pay attention. Like 20, 30.
What do you think he took from you?
I see the first. I couldn't see the second is
How much do you think he took from you?
about $30. I think. But you don't need to pay.
No, I'm gonna pay it because my son wasn't raised like that.
Why he is doing that? I don't want to ask, but
No. Listen to me. My son wasn't raised like that. My son drinks, and when he drinks, he does stupid stuff. I want to pay you back because you don't deserve to be stolen from. You're here to do a service. I appreciate it. He took it from your tip jar. $30 go back to your tip jar. God bless you.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
It's okay. I'm sorry. I put my son in treatment. I pray he stay and get some help. But I want you to be okay.
Can I come and hug?
Of course.
Yes. You know, I am live streaming. People like sharing everything everywhere. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, guys, let me hug.
It was worth sharing just because of what she said, which is true. And I mean, just putting the money right back in and saying, this is for you, I want you to be okay. That's the way we should all behave when something like that happens, right? So I just thought it was just a shining, really good example. Maybe she knows he's on the live stream and she wanted to make a show. I don't know. But I just thought it was really cool that she returned and she made that gesture and said that she wanted him to be okay. You can see they hug it out.
I'm sorry. You know, I like peace. Yeah.
I like
Come
peace.
here. Come here. Guys, look. Yeah. You're my mom too, you know?
Guy seems cool
Be
too.
okay.
Please. I always love peace, respect, love. That's what.
Do the right thing, you know. Always do the right thing. And people do mess up sometimes. So you see all these stories all the time. So it's good to see a mom coming through, especially, you know, with a black mom coming through for a kid and, you know, making a really good example. Because sometimes the videos you see online of people, they're just yelling and creating more and more drama. So it's nice to see somebody just come in and do the right thing and kind of lower the temperature a little bit. Kind of cool. Okay. And I think that's mostly it for tonight. We had the Artemis launch yesterday, I believe. Got Barack Obama coming out saying it was inspiring to watch Artemis 2 launch yesterday. NASA's first crewed mission around the moon since 1972. Our space program has always captured an essential part of what it means to reach beyond what we thought was possible. And I hope the 4 brave astronauts on this mission will inspire a new generation to follow in their footsteps. You didn't do shit, Obama. Program floundered under him. Unbelievable. Get out of here. Not taking credit for Artemis. That is cool, though. I like that. I didn't even realize they were going back to the moon. I thought it was just launching this new thing. But yeah, apparently they're going to go orbit the moon a little bit. So that's pretty sweet. It's the freaking moon. Anyways, that's it for the show tonight. We will... What will we do? I just get sometimes these like weird ads on my chat. So annoying. Streamboo, who the hell's that? Annoying. Anyways, I'm here Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Live stream. If you like Substack, I'm on there too. Subscribe on YouTube or Rumble or join the Substack. You get a free newsletter every morning that basically covers my show notes. It's written better, so you can see, you know, what happened. Quick, like, rundown of the day's news and stuff. And it's fun. And share the show with your friends. That's pretty much it. But I'll be back tomorrow night with some more news, some more